Welcome to the 2020 Global Peace Film Festival interviews. My name is Kelly Devine. I'm the artistic director. Please join me and Nina Strike, the executive director, as we welcome David Goodman with the film Elder Voices, Stories for These Times. Please be sure to check out the Global Peace Film Festival website to find out how to watch this film and to learn about all of our other programming events by visiting peacefilmfest.org. The festival runs from September 21st through October 4th. Tickets are on sale now. And now let's start the interview.
Welcome, David. It's so good to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about the film?
Yes, I started this film in 2011 because I had a personal connection to a Quaker retirement community, Medford Lee's in New Jersey. And my mother was actually there, and I began hearing these stories of people from that community that were very inspirational and striking to me. And I thought that this could become something I could work with as a filmmaker, as a documentary filmmaker. And one thing that really kicked it off for me was the founder of Medford Lee's retirement community, which all the characters in this film come from, was an intern as a teenager from the Japanese American from the West Coast and put in a camp. And afterwards, he didn't know what he was going to do with his life, but he decided to come east. He was a farmer, and Quakers in southern Jersey, where he settled, befriended him. And they were the only people during the internment that actually were people, Quakers and Quaker other organizations such as that, who visited them and cared about the people in the camp. So already 2011, I thought I didn't like the direction the country was going. And I thought their stories were very important to get on camera before they die, because all these people already were in their 80s, some in early 90s. And so that's what I did, not knowing, because it wasn't completed till last year, exactly what shape or form. All I knew at the first part was to make sure to get these oral histories and then figure out how to work with them, because time was of the essence, because every day they were losing something, in terms of memory, in terms of their ability to communicate.
So as you were, you said that you started in 2011. Mm-hmm. What surprised you about the process of interviewing these folks, or what did you learn that you didn't think you were going to learn along the way?
It was very interesting. It's a good question, because what I really learned was a lot about cultural differences. All these people from different communities and different backgrounds, all of them shared some universal challenges in their own way, but as culturally, some were much easier to work with as a documentary filmmaker in terms of oral histories, in terms of interviews, than others. I found that the Quakers were very easy to work with, because I'm not a Quaker, but I'm definitely a fellow traveler and subscribe to the values. So they were like a fellow journey people as I. So they were very easy to work with, and we had a lot in common already in terms of our histories, even though they're two generations beyond me. The next group, European Jews, I'm half Jewish, but I'm not a practicing Jew. I'm not even cultural, but I know from my family background and others, I've had a lot of contact within the Jewish community over the years. So, and I find that they're good talkers and they appreciate history tremendously. That's one of the reasons I think there's so many good documentary films about anti-Semitism, about the Holocaust, and so on and so forth, because they really care about history and they really care about memory, and that's part of how they identify. The third group, Japanese Americans, were very difficult, frankly, for me to work with because they're kind of the opposite, I found, to European Jews, that they're very reticent to share those stories. They're still embarrassed about the injustices. I'm talking about culturally, not every individual, but that they suffered. So it's much harder to get them to talk about and really have, I call them, my interviews aren't interviews, I call them conversations like you and I are having. That's the way I do it. And then I cut myself out usually. But they were very difficult. And I interviewed had conversations with 8 different Japanese Americans. We end up only using one because everyone else was too, what would be the word? The too soft, too understating what happened to them. So it was working against the narrative and message of the film. So 8, I only got 1, and she was excellent, Sumi. But the others, we tried to work in post-production. And unfortunately, that's why there's underrepresentation in the film. I would have liked a better balance.
Interesting. And you had also mentioned in answering the first question that you had already in 2011 thought that things were going in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about what's important about seeing this film today and why it speaks to today's issues?
Well, I think it speaks, I'm afraid that things have just accelerated in what I consider a very negative way. And I think now, really, the consequences and the stakes are higher than they've ever been, at least in my lifetime. I'm 74, than they've ever been. And I go back as far as the civil rights movement and certainly Vietnam and all those, Iraq, all that and more. And I just think that it's dire and that people here in this country do not believe something as catastrophic as the Holocaust could happen. And even back in 2011, as I said, it's more negative. I tend to be a pessimist, I have to confess. But even I did not foresee today. I saw the direction, but I didn't see it. So I think it's, and I know from history that people who, as the film points out, who ignore history or said American exceptionalism, oh, it can't happen here. Well, that's exactly what people who are oppressed, socialists, Jews, gypsies, gays in Europe, for instance, in fascism and Italy during World War II. It can't happen here. Jews felt very, they were German. They thought this won't happen. We contribute a lot to this country. So, but when economics and things turn really bad, I'm not going to go into all history of that in this interview, but it can happen here. There's no reason it cannot. That's a very scary message. So the only way I know to try to combat that, as we were talking about previously, is to try to wake people up, sort of like Paul Revere, and wake up, because don't be apathetic that way. We have to be active. It really can happen here. And just look at what's happening so far. And one of the, Kit Ellenberg in the film says that, look what happened to you. I'm quoting from the film, talking about her parents. Look what happened to you. You never signed everything. You never went anywhere. And look what happened. They were lucky enough to survive, that family. I'm talking about survivors, but 6 million people died.
Well, and as you mentioned, we had spoken earlier that even as dire as things are, you made this film out of a sense of a positive contribution to offer an inspiration. And that's at the root of what this festival is all about, is showing that as large and complex as the issues facing us may be, that we can always find something positive, to some kind of action to take. And if you wouldn't mind speaking to, why you chose these voices.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that I picked people who were inspirational, who overcame tremendous challenges to become very successful. If you're in Medford East, frankly, that's a very rich. I'll never be able to go there. I don't have enough money. But it's a really up there kind of place. People are very well off economically. Anyone goes there. So I wanted to make a film about people who were successful, who were role models. I think because they did stand up, they have been active their whole life. And that's the only hope we have. So that's the positive takeaway from the film. And we try to close in the last few minutes, pointing out both the similarities between then and now, and also but it's a challenge that we have to be active, and activity is positive and not only necessary because of the dire situation, but our only hope for a better future. And people like they're my role models. I hope for other people too. They're the ones that keep me going. When I get in despair, I get pretty depressed about things sometimes. I'm just being honest with you. I think that's normal. If you're not, I don't know where you're living. So that's, I guess that addresses your question.
Yeah, thank you so much, David.
Mm-hmm.
So David, what's next for you? And also tell us how our audiences can support your work, this film and other work of yours.
Well, the way, first of all, second part is the website is up there for people, right? And that, and you can contact Bullfrog Films directly. There's a site for them. You can go to my website, our website, to find out more. But it's now a lot word of mouth. If you see this film through the festival, I would really, really hope that you would, if assuming you think it's a value, really, really hope that you would get the word out, help us get the word out. And secondly, it's very important to share it with younger people. I think they're the people who have to learn this history in order to be active, to be, like we were just talking about, positive. You have to know what's come before and how you can learn from that, both in a positive way, not just what happened, but in a positive way that can help us shape a better future. On the second aspect of it, the new film I'm working on is called Police on the Home Front, working title. And it's inspired by, it's inspired by, we still on?
Yes.
It's inspired by the police brutality. And I did a book when I was with the Quakers in 1971 called that, Police on the Home Front. And what the film's going to deal with is the universities who support, all the people who support police as they are constituted today. And of course, it's a very mixed and mostly not very pretty picture, literally picture, is all those support, whether it's weapons coming, where do they get these weapons, these high-tech weapons? So we'll have, everything about that will be exposed. The universities and colleges are tied in to psychology. The whole colonialization, the people who are being oppressed in this country today, talking mainly of people of Black and people of color, and of course people from the Middle East and India, the psychology, the tactics they use are exactly the same as the ones that are used overseas, in Yemen or back then in Vietnam. It's the same trainers. It's the same thing. It's the whole point of the film is that the people who are being colonized, and I use that word both domestically and internationally, although it's going to have a domestic focus. The tactics of how, when you only have a limited number of forces, you can control huge numbers of people, whether it be in Watts or whether it be in some country that's like the Philippines, because that's how they do it. And the tactics are exactly the same, and the people who work out the weaponry are exactly the same. And that's what the film is going to be about. So it's going to be something that's deeper, that give a much more analytical framework to why what we see today, what you literally see when you look at this, where those weapons come from, what are the tactics, and to give that a real focus and grounding.
Really interesting. Thank you, David. We'll be sure to look into all of your work. And thank you all who listened to this interview. If you want to learn more about Elder Voices Stories for These Times, you can go to eldervoicesfilm.com or go to bullfrogfilms.com/catalog/elder and learn all about this film. Also, you can check out the 2020 Global Peace Film Festival programming, including this film and all of our other events at peacefilmfest.org. Again, the festival runs September 21st through October 4th. We'll see you at the festival. Thank you.